Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. In today's video, I'm going to show you 3 different projects to get you ready for the spring. So let's get started. So my first piece is a piece of scrap wood, and I painted it with Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. And this is just a Harlequin stencil. But because I want to make sure that it doesn't bleed through the stencil, then I go ahead and put the stencil on, and I stencil with chiffon cream, and I let that dry, and then I go back with Waverly Mineral Chalk Paint, or that's actually the color of it. And then that way, because I put that first coat of chiffon cream on it, then it doesn't bleed through on the stencil. So I wanted to apologize. I'm not real sure how the screen is going to look on this when you watch it. I was using a different camera angle, and I hope it's not really small. But I'm going to adjust it some. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint this mold that I made a while back, and it's made with Redesign with Prima, and the name of the mold is called Finley. And I made it with hot glue. And I used this trick that I got from Victoria Conhurst, where you lay it down on painter's tape, and then it's real easy to paint it, and you don't have to be picking it up a lot. And I painted it black, and now I'm going back with DIY gold gilding wax all over it. And I put it on rather heavy. And there's a lot of detail on this frame. Now, once got that set off to the side, I'm going to just sand down that Harlequin pattern. Now I'm using the IOD Kindest Regards stamp that I'm going to be putting just to the left side of that frame. Now, the piece of decoupage paper that I used inside the frame is made by Decoupage Central, and I'll make sure to link that in the description box below. And this is a Zuri mold, and it's called Seamless Borders, and I'm actually going to be using both pieces on it. The one that's a little bit more plain, I'm going to be putting that down at the bottom of the sign, and then the other one I'm going to be putting up at the top. Now, that piece of decoupage paper, it actually, I believe, had 4 different designs on it. So 2 of the designs, I wanted that extra little floral down at the bottom of it. So I'm going to be using parts of that at the bottom of the sign. And you'll see that in just a few minutes. So what I will tell you that I decided to do later was, after I put that first mold down at the bottom, then I realized I needed to go back and cover up that Harlequin. And I just painted it with the Rust-Oleum chiffon cream because I'm going to be putting some stamps on it. And then this is actually made out of clay as well. And I go ahead and just put a little bit of paint on it to begin with, and that keeps it from cracking. And then I'll go back later and add a little bit more to it. Now I'm going to be using a couple different molds to put up at the top. And this is a Redesign with Prima, and it's called Cherry Blossoms. And I'm going to be using hot glue in these molds. And I just go ahead and do several different pieces of the mold, and it all works together, and then I just make it work and fit together. Now, these are just some stamps that I got off of Amazon, and I'm putting them on with the IOD black ink, and I'm just making a collage of some different stamps. Now, over to the right-hand side, I'm going to be using a stamp from the Redesign with Prima called I See Paris, and I just kind of make a collage of different ones. And then after I get all those put on, there's still some little spaces that I want to cover up, but I don't want to overlap stamps. So then what I decide to do is I go back in with the IOD Stone Gray ink. So it's not really overshadowing the first mold or the first stamp, but it just adds a little bit more dimension to it. Now these are just those blue flowers that I pulled off of a different part of the decoupage paper, and I'm just putting those down at the bottom. And now I've already painted those molds up at the top, and I'm going to get those put on. And then I'm also going to be going and I'm going to be putting gold gilding wax all over the different pieces of mold that I have put onto my sign. And this is just such a beautiful sign today, and it was inspired by some different pieces that I found on Pinterest. And I have to admit, this is my favorite project today. I really, really like it. And it will just, can be, put on a shelf, or it can also be hung up if you want. And I'd put on all my molds with Tight Bond Thick and Quick, and it's the bottle that's blue and gray. Now, because I used a heavy gilding wax on that little frame, then I want the other molds that I used to be just the same, so I do use quite a bit of gold gilding wax on it. But because it's painted black, then it kind of gives that dimension to it, and it pulls out the details. So tell me, what do you think? I really, really like this piece, and I like the blues in it. And, there's so many of us that love birds, and so this will be perfect as we head into spring. And I just think it's got so many different vibes. It's got some shabby chic and some cottage core, and maybe even just a little French country. But I just think it's got so much in it, but I think it all blends well together. But this is definitely my favorite piece today. So tell me something. What do you think? And what would you have added differently? Now, if you're liking the video today, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not part of our family already. We would love to have you as part of our family. Now, my next piece is just a hardback book, and I've had that opening cut for quite some time, and I believe it's about maybe 1/2 inch cut down into the book. And I painted it all white, and now I'm just gluing those pages down with just some clear school glue, but I'm not doing every page. I just kind of do a little chunk here and there, and then I'm going to glue down that hardcover to the book. And then I do go back and I paint those pages white just because I think it looks just a little bit better to me. And then on that little inside edge, I paint that with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint with that as well, because I want it to look cohesive. And I'm going to be covering up the edges of that little opening. Now, this is a mold that I use quite a lot, and it's a Redesign with Prima, and it's called Regal Trimmings. And I really like it because there's some really just, I don't want to call them plain, but there's some very simple trim designs, and they're really skinny, so it works well when you don't want something that's really thick. And I just use my DOS air dry clay, and I push it in with my thumb, and then what I do like to do is I go back over it with a little credit card and smooth it out. Now, when I'm putting this trim on, I miter the corners because I want it to look more like a frame. So I just kind of get those two side pieces, and I cut those two sides at an angle, and then I lay down my bottom piece and then miter those corners. And that's just a little paint scraper that I use. It's just a little bit sharp. And I glue those down with Tight Bond Thick and Quick. Now, the blue that I'm using today is actually a mixture of two different colors, and they're both Dixie Belle colors. One is Dusty Blue, and the other one is Haint Blue. But I mix them together because I need to get the color of the decoupage paper that I'm going to be putting on the inside. Now, this is the other design that comes with that decoupage paper, and it's two little lovebirds. And I went on and have torn it out or torn it off of that larger piece of decoupage paper, and I painted the back side of it white already because I wasn't really sure if I was going to be putting it on a surface that was painted white. So it just helps to already have it painted white, and then that way the background doesn't bleed through on the decoupage. And I'm going to be gluing that down on the inside with Pent Art decoupage varnish and glue. So I just put a little bit on and push it down, and then I just work my way down by adding just a little bit more at a time. And I put it in the center of that opening. And because it's a small piece, I don't really need to use a big brush to put that glue on. Now, this is another mold, and I'm really not sure where I got this one. And it's just some little labels. And it came with, I think, a pack of 2. And this one is actually the skinniest little label because I want to put a label up at the top. And so this one was the thinnest and the skinniest one of all. Now, I put this one in the freezer because it had those little edges to it, and I didn't want it to break off as I pulled it out, but I put it in the freezer, and when I took it out, they kind of cracked off anyway, so I just kind of stuck them up, pushed them up against it, and made it look like it was still not broken. And then I go ahead and paint it with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. And then I go back and I put that same blue on the trim of that label. Now this is the IOD Lock and Key because I'm going to be making that mold to put on the side of that hardcover book. And once it goes on with Type Bond Thick and Quick, I'll let it sit up for a little bit and then I paint it as well. Now the inside edge, well, it's just a little rough looking and I want to clean it up a little bit. So this is just some lace, and I think I got it at Joann's Fabrics. And I just glue it in. Now this is a low temperature hot glue gun, so I'm not burning my finger. And I just work my way all around on the inside. And then I start down at the bottom because I know at the end it's going to overlap a little bit. And if it's down at the bottom, you're not going to see it as much. And this is just a little stamp. And I stamped it on a napkin. But I'm tearing it off really easy because I just wanted to put that on that label up at the top. And then I also made a key from that same lock and key mold and just glued that up to the top with a little blue ribbon. And I used some gold gilding wax on those different molds to add just a little bit of glimmer to it and to also bring out that dimension on the mold. So, what do you think? I really like this one as well. And this can just be a little shelf sitter. Now, the very last project is just some other new pieces from Decoupage Central, and it's just some little floral wreaths, and they're just really small. So I already have 3 different molds made up, and I just have painted them with Rust-Oleum linen white chalk paint. And I go ahead and get those little pieces of decoupage paper put on it, and then I put gold gilding wax around the edge. And then I'm going to put just a little magnet on the back because these are just going to be some magnets for my refrigerator. And because I have grandchildren, I'm constantly getting little things that they've drawn that they want Grammy to hang up on the refrigerator. So I like to have some pretty little magnets to hang those up with. And I just put gold gilding wax on all 3 frames. One of them is the IOD Frames Mould. And the one with the little arch is a redesign with Prima, and it's called Lysandra. And I'll make sure to link these in the description box below. But friends, we are at the end of the video today, and I hope you've enjoyed all the projects today. But I wanted to go ahead and get these out to you because Decoupage Central just released all of this decoupage paper, and they've got some Easter pieces, and they're going to be dropping some more papers around the middle of January because Easter is coming pretty early this year. So if you have a booth, a vendor booth, you're going to want to be prepared and go ahead and get some pieces out. But that little book that has the 2 birds on it, that would be perfect to give somebody for Valentine's. And if you didn't want to take a hardback book and, cut out a little opening, you could still just decoupage it to the top of maybe a little journal and still do all of the different trims and the molds. And that could be a gift to somebody. But I just love all the pieces today. But this one is definitely my favorite because there's just so much detail to it, but I really like the way it turned out. So in the comments below, make sure to tell me which one was your favorite today. And are you already beginning to think about how you're going to decorate for the spring? So remember, if you liked the video today, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you're not already part of our family. And I will see you soon with a winter decor video.